Ambassador Kim Hannah walked slowly through the massive doors of the Galactic Council building. Her blue and silver robes moved quietly as she stepped into the Great Hall, where representatives from across the galaxy gathered. The ceiling stretched high above her head, covered in swirling lights that showed images of peaceful worlds and happy alien families. Everything here was designed to make visitors feel calm and safe. Hannah had done this walk many times before. For 30 years, she had come to these meetings, always smiling, always polite, always careful to show how much humans loved peace. She knew exactly how to bow her head when greeting the tall crystal beings called the Velter. She knew to speak softly when talking to the Mordani, who shared thoughts with each other like a giant family mind. And she always kept her distance from the Lum Sith, who were made of pure energy and found physical beings uncomfortable. Today was another cultural exchange meeting. Hannah stood at the center of the Great Hall and waited for quiet. The alien representatives floated, stood, or hung in the air around her, depending on their species. Some looked like walking trees, others like living rocks, and a few were just balls of colored light. "Friends of the Council," Hannah began, her voice warm and friendly. "The people of Earth are honored to present our quarterly cultural sharing program." She gestured to Minister Park Ji-ho, who stood behind her with a small device in his hands. Park activated the hologram projector. Beautiful images filled the air above them. Human paintings of flowers and sunsets appeared first, followed by videos of children singing gentle songs. Then came recordings of human poetry about love and friendship, and finally images of humans helping injured animals. The Velter representative, a being that looked like a walking diamond sculpture, made pleasant chiming sounds. "Ambassador Kim, your people continue to amaze us. Such beautiful art, such peaceful thoughts. It makes us so happy to see how far humans have come from your violent past." Other aliens made agreeing sounds. The Mordani collective voice spoke like many people, talking at once. "Yes, we remember when humans first reached space. So much anger, so many weapons. But look at you now. You have learned the ways of peace." Hannah smiled and bowed her head humbly. "We are grateful for your patience with us as we learned better ways." Inside her mind, she was thinking of something very different. At that exact moment, 3 star systems away, Colonel Lee Minho was walking through a Velter space station. He was pretending to study their beautiful crystal art, but really he was taking pictures of their security systems and counting how many guards they had at each important door. Dr. Choi Sora was also there, disguised as a human scientist interested in crystal growing. She had spent weeks asking innocent questions about how Velter crystals were made. The aliens thought she wanted to make pretty jewelry. They had no idea she was learning how to break their crystal technology if humans ever needed to fight them. The cultural exchange meeting continued for another hour. Aliens shared their own art and music with the humans. The Lum Sith created beautiful light shows that danced through the air. The Mordani sang songs with 1,000 voices that sounded like ocean waves. Everyone smiled and clapped and said nice things about peace and friendship, but Hannah kept thinking about other things. She thought about the secret message she had received that morning from Earth. General Yoon Taik had sent her new information about alien military bases, alien weapon factories, and alien government buildings. All of this information had been gathered by humans who were pretending to be peaceful tourists, traders, and artists. When the meeting ended, Hannah shook hands in tentacles and energy fields with all the alien representatives. They all told her how much they loved having humans in the council. They said humans were proof that any species could learn to be civilized if they tried hard enough. As Hannah walked back to her ship, she thought about how wrong they were. Humans had not stopped being dangerous. They had just gotten much better at hiding it. Every human diplomat was also a spy. Every human trader was also gathering military intelligence. Every human scientist was also studying alien weaknesses Far away on Earth's moon, General Yoon Taik sat in a room deep underground, surrounded by computer screens showing alien worlds. His desk was covered with reports from human agents across the galaxy. Some humans were pretending to be artists and secretly mapping alien defense systems. Others were acting like peaceful merchants while they counted alien warships. A few were playing the role of curious scientists while they learned how to jam alien communications. The general smiled as he read the latest reports. The aliens thought they knew humans. They thought humans had learned to be peaceful and civilized. They had no idea that humans were still the same dangerous species they had always been. The only difference was that now, humans were smart enough to hide their true nature until they needed it. In space stations across the galaxy, other aliens went to sleep feeling safe and happy. They believed the universe was a peaceful place where everyone could live together as friends. They never suspected that their human friends were always watching, always learning, always preparing for the day when the mask would finally come off. The emergency alarm echoed through the Galactic Council, building like the cry of a dying animal. Ambassador Kim Hannah ran down the long hallway toward the emergency meeting room, her diplomatic robes flowing behind her. She had never heard this alarm before. In 30 years of peaceful council meetings, nothing had ever been urgent enough to wake up representatives in the middle of their sleep cycles. The great meeting hall was chaos. Alien representatives were arriving from all directions, some still wearing their sleeping clothes. The Velter crystals were flashing angry red colors. The Mordani collective was making worried humming sounds that filled the air like the buzz of frightened insects. Even the usually calm Lumsith energy beings were flickering between colors rapidly, which meant they were very upset. Hannah took her seat just as the giant viewing screen activated. Images began flooding in from the outer edge of the galaxy. At first, the pictures looked normal. Star systems with planets orbiting peacefully around their suns. Space stations busy with daily life. Ships moving cargo between worlds. Then the images changed. The same star systems were now completely dark. No planets, no stations, no ships. Just empty black space where entire civilizations had existed only days before. Council leader Mordane Prime stood up, all 1,000 voices of his collective consciousness, speaking at once. Fellow representatives, we face something we have never seen before. These are the final messages we received from the outer systems. The screen filled with terrified faces of different alien species. A Velter commander with cracks running through his crystal body screamed into his communicator. They are not ships. They are something else. They eat light itself. They eat everything. We cannot fight them. We cannot run. They are coming for... The message cut off into static. Another message showed a Lumsith colony. Thousands of energy beings were trying to escape their dying star system. The darkness follows us. Their leader's voice was filled with terror. It consumes our energy. It consumes our thoughts. It consumes our very existence, warned the council. Do not try to fight them. There is no fighting the void harvest. The screen went black. More messages played. Every one ended the same way. Entire civilizations screaming for help, then silence. Forever. The meeting hall was completely quiet, except for the frightened breathing and energy humming of the representatives. Finally, Mordane Prime spoke again, his voice shaking. We must think carefully about our response. Perhaps these void harvest beings are just hungry. Maybe we can negotiate with them. We could offer them resources from uninhabited systems. We could share our technology with them. There must be a peaceful solution. Several alien representatives nodded their heads or made agreeing sounds. The Lumsith representative pulsed with hope. Yes, all intelligent beings can be reasoned with. We have never met a species that did not want peace once we explained the benefits of cooperation. Captain Jung Yuan sat in the back of the hall, wearing the uniform of a simple human transport pilot. Most of the council thought he carried supplies between human colonies. They had no idea that his ship, the Silent Storm, was actually the most advanced spy vessel humanity had ever built. For 6 months, he had been watching the Void Harvest destroy everything in their path. Jung wanted to stand up and tell these foolish aliens the truth. The Void Harvest did not negotiate. They did not want resources, or technology, or friendship. They wanted everything. Every planet, every star, every living being. They consumed matter and energy, and then moved on to find more. He had watched them destroy a civilization of 50 billion beings in less than 2 hours. There had been no communication, no demands, no mercy. Just efficient, complete destruction. Ambassador Kim Hannah looked around the room at all the worried alien faces. She knew what Jung had seen during his secret missions. She also knew that suggesting violence would make these peaceful aliens panic. So she chose her words very carefully. "Honorable Council Leader," she said, standing up slowly. "While we certainly should try diplomatic contact, perhaps we should also consider preparing some defensive measures, just in case the negotiations do not go as well as we hope." The reaction was immediate. Alien representatives began making shocked sounds. The Velter crystals turned dark blue, which meant they were deeply disturbed. The Mordani collective voice rose to an angry buzz. The Lumsith representative flashed bright red with disapproval. "Ambassador Kim, surely you are not suggesting warfare. Your species has worked so hard to leave behind those primitive ways of thinking. War is not the answer to any problem. It never has been." Hannah nodded respectfully. "Of course, you are absolutely right. War should always be the last option. I only meant that we should perhaps move our most important facilities away from the Outer Rim, and maybe organize some evacuation plans for civilian populations." What she did not say was that at that very moment, deep in hidden bases throughout human space, Admiral Oh Sungmin was giving orders to thousands of human workers. Secret shipyards that the aliens thought were mining stations were now building warships. Weapons factories that were disguised as research centers were producing ammunition. Soldiers who were supposed to be farmers and artists were putting on armor and checking their weapons. The council continued debating for hours. They formed committees to study the problem. They created working groups to draft diplomatic messages. They scheduled more meetings to discuss their options. Meanwhile, the Void Harvest continued moving toward the heart of the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. And humanity continued preparing for a war that the rest of the galaxy refused to believe was coming. The Void Harvest had destroyed 12 more star systems in the past week. The outer rim of the galaxy was now completely dark, empty space where billions of beings had once lived. The Emergency War Council met every day, but their discussions went nowhere. They formed committees to study the problem. They sent messages, asking the Void Harvest to please stop destroying everything. They got no replies. Finally, Velter Command Prime stood up in the middle of another useless meeting. His crystal body was dark with stress marks that ran like black cracks through his transparent skin. "We need help," he said, his voice making sad chiming sounds. "Our defense fleets cannot stop these creatures. Maybe the humans can coordinate our efforts. They seem good at organizing things." Several alien representatives made agreeing sounds, but others looked confused. The Lumsith representative flickered between colors. "But humans have such a small military. Their ships are mostly for carrying cargo and passengers. What can they do that we cannot?" Ambassador Kim Hannah had been sitting quietly in her chair, listening to weeks of alien panic and confusion. Now she stood up slowly. Something was different about her. Her usual warm smile was gone. Her gentle voice sounded harder, colder. "Command Prime, you want us to coordinate the galaxy's defense against the Void Harvest?" "Yes," the crystal being replied hopefully. "You humans are good at making plans and getting different groups to work together. Maybe you can help us organize our fleets better." Hannah looked around the room at all the worried alien faces. Then she pressed a button on her chair. The lights dimmed, and huge holographic displays appeared in the air above the meeting table. What the aliens saw made them gasp in shock. The first display showed human space, but instead of the peaceful farming worlds and small trade stations the aliens expected to see, the hologram revealed massive military bases hidden inside what looked like innocent planets. Worlds that were supposed to grow food were actually giant weapons factories. Space stations that were supposed to be research centers were revealed as heavily armed fortresses. Minister Park Ji-ho stepped forward and pressed another button. New numbers appeared in the air. The aliens stared in disbelief. Humanity had over 50,000 warships. 50,000. The entire rest of the galaxy combined had fewer than 20,000 ships, and most of those were small patrol boats. Dr. Choi Sora activated the weapons display. She showed guns that could destroy entire moons with one shot, bombs that could make stars explode, armor that could protect ships from attacks that would vaporize mountains. Every piece of technology violated multiple galactic treaties that forbade such dangerous weapons. "These weapons are impossible," whispered a Mordani representative. "The energy requirements alone would destroy any ship that tried to use them." "We solved those problems 30 years ago," Dr. Choi replied calmly. "We just never told you how." Colonel Lee Minho was the next to speak. He showed battle plans that made the alien representatives feel sick to their stomachs. His strategies included sacrificing entire planets to create tactical advantages. He had detailed plans for using civilian populations as shields. He talked about acceptable loss numbers that included millions of deaths. The meeting room was so quiet that everyone could hear the frightened breathing of the alien representatives. Some of the Veilter crystals had turned completely black with shock. The lump Sith energy beings were flickering so rapidly they looked like broken lights. Ambassador Kim Hannah looked at their terrified faces. Her diplomatic mask was completely gone now. The warm, friendly woman who had smiled and bowed politely for 30 years had disappeared. In her place stood someone cold and dangerous. "Every cultural exchange we organized," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Every art show, every music concert, every poetry reading, they were all cover stories. While you were enjoying our paintings and songs, our real people were studying your military bases, your government buildings, your power plants." She gestured to the holographic displays that still showed the true size of human military power. "Every trade mission we sent to your worlds included intelligence agents. They learned how your ships work, how your weapons function, where you keep your important equipment. Every human scientist who visited your research centers was actually gathering information about your weaknesses." Mordani Prime's collective voice sounded like 1,000 people crying at once. "You lied to us. For 30 years, you made us believe you were peaceful. You made us trust you. But you were spying on us the whole time." Captain Jung Ki-wan stepped forward from where he had been standing quietly in the back of the room. Most of the aliens still thought he was a simple cargo pilot. They had no idea his ship was actually a stealth warship that had been watching their movements for years. "We never lied about being civilized," he said firmly. "We are civilized. We create beautiful art. We love music and poetry and literature. We care about our families and our friends. We want peace and happiness for everyone." He paused and looked around the room at all the shocked alien faces. "But we also never forgot something that you chose to forget. Civilization is not natural. Peace is not the normal state of the universe. If you want to keep the good things in life, you have to be ready to fight for them." The comfortable world the aliens had lived in for centuries was crashing down around them. They had believed the galaxy was a safe, peaceful place where everyone could be friends. Now they learned that their human friends had been preparing for war the entire time, watching and waiting for the day when the mask would finally come off. That day had arrived. The space around the dying star system of Kepler 442 looked completely empty. The Lumsith scouts had checked it 3 times, using their most advanced sensors. Nothing was there except cold, dark space. The Void Harvest was moving toward this system to consume it, just like they had consumed dozens of others. The alien defenders were already retreating, following their usual plan of pulling back to safer positions. Then the empty space began to change. First, 1 ship appeared, then 10, then 50, then hundreds. They materialized out of nothing, like ghosts becoming solid. The largest ship was massive, bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its name was painted on the side in simple human letters, Iron Mountain, on the bridge of the Iron Mountain. Admiral Oh Sungmin looked at the screens showing the approaching Void Harvest fleet. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard as stone. He had been waiting 30 years for this moment. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. These were not the peaceful, artistic humans the galaxy thought they knew. These were warriors. All ships, Admiral O said into his communicator, knowing that alien observers across the galaxy would hear his words. You are free to use all weapons. Show them why the children of Earth rule the darkness between the stars. The human fleet moved forward to meet the Void Harvest. What happened next made the watching aliens feel sick to their stomachs. Captain Jung Ki-wan led the first attack. His squadron of 50 ships flew straight into the enemy formation. The aliens watching expected him to use careful tactics, trying to save as many ships as possible. Instead, Jung did something that horrified them. He used 20 of his own ships as decoys, sending them to certain death to create an opening for the other 30 ships to attack. The decoy ships exploded one by one as the Void Harvest fired at them. But while the enemy was destroying the decoys, Jung's remaining ships got close enough to use their secret weapons. Beams of energy that had never been seen before cut through the Void Harvest ships like knives through paper. Enemy vessels turned into expanding clouds of burning gas and metal. They are sacrificing their own people, whispered a Velter observer, watching from a safe distance. How can they do such a thing? A human officer standing nearby heard the comment. Because dead heroes are better than living slaves, he replied, coldly on the planet's surface. General Yuntaik was leading ground troops against Void Harvest forces that had already landed. The alien observers expected to see humans retreat when they faced overwhelming enemy numbers. Instead, they watched human soldiers do something that defied all understanding of civilized warfare. The humans advanced into enemy fire. When their friends died beside them, they kept moving forward. When the enemy had better weapons and stronger positions, the humans found ways to get closer. They used explosives that they made from ordinary supplies. They turned everyday items into deadly traps. They fought with a fury that seemed to come from some deep, dark place in their souls. A group of human marines was surrounded by Void Harvest creatures in a narrow valley. Any civilized species would have surrendered or tried to negotiate. Instead, the humans did something that made the watching aliens gasp in horror. They collapsed the entire valley on top of themselves and their enemies, using bombs they had made from mining equipment. They are monsters, a Lumsith observer flickered in fear. They killed themselves just to kill their enemies. Colonel Lee Minho was coordinating the ground battle from his command post. He heard the aliens comment through his radio and responded grimly. No, we are what monsters fear when they look into the dark. The war continued for weeks. Every battle was the same story. The Void Harvest expected to face the same kind of resistance they had encountered throughout the galaxy. Civilized beings who valued life and tried to minimize casualties. Instead, they met humans who valued victory above everything else. Human pilots flew their ships into enemy vessels when they ran out of ammunition. Human soldiers fought hand-to-hand with creatures twice their size when their guns stopped working. Human commanders made decisions that sacrificed hundreds of their own people to save thousands of others. The aliens watching the war could not understand what they were seeing. Every human victory came at a terrible cost. Entire human squadrons were destroyed to achieve small tactical advantages. Whole human armies died to capture single enemy positions. The humans seemed to treat their own lives as just another weapon, to be used when necessary. But slowly, impossibly, the tide of war began to turn. The Void Harvest, which had consumed dozens of star systems without any real resistance, found themselves being pushed back. Their ships were destroyed faster than they could replace them. Their ground forces were defeated by enemies who refused to stay defeated no matter how many times they were knocked down. In the final battle above Kepler 4 for 2b, Admiral Oh Sung-min faced the largest Void Harvest ship anyone had ever seen. It was 10 times bigger than his flagship, and had weapons that could destroy planets. A civilized commander would have tried to find a way to avoid such an uneven fight. Instead, Admiral Oh ordered his entire fleet to ram the enemy ship at maximum speed. 300 human vessels smashed into the Void Harvest flagship like bullets, hitting armor. Most of the human ships were destroyed on impact. But the enemy ship was torn apart by the collisions. When the war finally ended, the Void Harvest fleet was scattered across space like broken toys. Their invasion was over, but the galaxy's innocence was over too. The aliens had seen what their peaceful human friends really were underneath their masks of civilization. They were the darkness that other darkness feared. The Galactic Council building had never seen chaos like this before. Angry alien representatives filled the great meeting hall, their voices creating a storm of sound that echoed off the walls. Some were shouting for humans to be thrown out of the council immediately. Others were demanding that all human worlds be attacked before humans could attack them first. Fear filled the air like a poisonous gas. The Mordani collective consciousness was breaking apart. For the first time in their history, the 1,000 minds that usually thought together were arguing with each other. Some wanted to forgive the humans, others wanted revenge, and still others wanted to hide and hope the humans would forget about them. The Lumseth energy beings were flickering between colors so fast, they looked like broken lights. They had never experienced such terror before. Their energy forms pulsed with pure fear, as they remembered watching human soldiers die just to kill their enemies. Ambassador Kim Hannah walked into the meeting hall one last time, but she was not the same woman who had smiled and bowed politely for 30 years. That gentle diplomat was gone forever. The person who stood before the angry aliens now was harder, colder, and much more dangerous. She did not bow. She did not smile. She simply stood there and waited for the shouting to stop. Finally, the noise died down. Velter Command Prime stepped forward, his crystal body flashing with angry red patterns. "You lied to us," he said, his voice making harsh chiming sounds. "For 30 years. You made us believe you were peaceful. You made us trust you. But you were warriors the whole time." Hannah looked at him with cold eyes. "We showed you what you were able to accept," she replied. "We knew you were not ready for the truth about what we really are. But tell me, Command Prime, when the Void Harvest started eating your people, how many lives did your committees and your diplomatic messages save?" The crystal being's light dimmed, but he did not answer. "Minister." Park Ji-ho stepped up beside Hannah. He had also changed. The friendly cultural minister who had shown aliens pretty pictures of human art was gone. "We never lied about being civilized," he said firmly. "We are civilized. We make beautiful art. We love music and stories and poetry. We care about our families and want peace for everyone." He paused and looked around the room at all the frightened alien faces. "But we also understand something you forgot long ago. Civilization does not happen by itself. Peace is not natural. If you want to keep the good things in life, someone has to be willing to fight for them." General Yoon-taek's image appeared in the air above the meeting table. He was speaking from his command center deep inside Earth's moon, surrounded by screens, showing human military bases across the galaxy. "The choice you have to make is simple," he said. "You can accept what we are and let us protect you from the next threat. Or you can try to face the next monster alone." Dr. Choi Sora activated a holographic display that showed information recovered from destroyed Void Harvest ships. The aliens gasped as they saw the terrible truth. "Our science teams found records in their computer systems," she explained. "The Void Harvest has been traveling between galaxies for over 1,000,000 years. They have consumed 47 different galaxies before they came here. Billions of civilizations, trillions of beings." She changed the display to show star maps of distant space. "We stopped them here, but there are others like them out there. Other monsters that eat entire worlds. Other threats that'll come for you eventually. The universe is not a safe place, and it never has been." The meeting hall was quiet for a long time. The aliens looked at each other with worried expressions. They had spent centuries believing the galaxy was peaceful and safe. Now they learned it was full of dangers they had never imagined. A representative finally spoke, flickering nervously between colors. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing you have not already given us," Hannah replied. "We want to stay in the council. We want to keep trading with you and sharing art and music and ideas. But we also want you to accept what we are. We are your protectors. When the next monster comes from the darkness, we will fight it so you do not have to." The vote took 3 days. It was not easy. Many aliens were still afraid of humans. Some wanted to expel humanity from the council immediately. Others wanted to attack human worlds before humans could attack them. But in the end, fear of unknown monsters in the dark won out over fear of the known monsters who had just saved them. The vote was close, but it was enough. Humanity would stay in the council, but with a new role. They would no longer pretend to be harmless artists and diplomats. They would be what they had always been, the galaxy's sword and shield. 3 months later, the Terran Defense Compact was signed. Human military bases were built in every major star system. Human warships patrolled the space between worlds. Human soldiers trained alien recruits who wanted to learn how to fight. Ambassador Kim Hannah became Defense Coordinator Kim Hannah. She kept an office in the council building, but it was very different from her old diplomatic office. Instead of art and flowers, her walls were covered with maps of the galaxy, showing defense positions and patrol routes. As she sat in her new office, she thought about the price of truth. The aliens would never again see humans as harmless friends. They would always be a little afraid of the species that had saved them, but maybe that was better. Fear would keep them safe. Fear would make them remember that the universe was dangerous and that someone had to stand guard against the monsters. In the dark, the mask was finally off. The galaxy was safe, and humanity would never apologize for being what the universe needed them to be.